better go with that.
All right. Dennis, it's been 3 weeks, because we had 2 weeks with no recording, so that's 3 whole weeks.
Well, you never would have known it on my end.
Really? Why is that?
Wednesdays have been quite celebratory.
Explain.
Oh, boy. Well, we had my brother Jojo came up for a trip, and we went to go see Out of Favor Boys. Something keeps popping up on my screen. I cannot get rid of it. It is so annoying. I say no, and it's soda. PDF desktop pops up on my screen, big X on it, disappears, comes back on no matter how I answer it in the negative. Get rid of this. It keeps coming back.
Well,
if it happens and I can't see you when it just takes up the whole screen.
Yeah, well, let's pray that you've solved it. So Jojo came up.
So Jojo comes up, and we went to go listen to Out of Favor Boys down at O'Duffy's. Fine time was had by all. It was the Old Favor Boys duo, and that began a long weekend of excessive drinking and fun. And Johnny Bergen, the event that I've been planning for all these months, came to pass.
Sweet.
Very, very well attended. Better attended than the other two by far. The other two events that were similarly publicized. We had an after party, which had a raucous 15 people in a small room, and Johnny played from 11 o'clock until 1.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they threw us out of the room. That's the
after party after the concert.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and what we did not have in quantity, we made up in enthusiasm. And Johnny was thrilled. I mean, they just kept playing and playing. If they weren't thrilled, they wouldn't have kept playing.
Right.
And I scratched up enough bread to make it worth their while, at any rate. But boy, what a show. I got to play with them. Did a couple of tunes. That's always a blast.
Nice.
And so my brother was here for all that. Then we had a kind of a sudden family get-together when Joe told me he's leaving on Tuesday or he was leaving on Wednesday morning rather than Thursday.
Right.
So an impromptu feed for 9 took place, which included a trip to the local Spanish fast food, but prepare it fresh on the spot, and got $100 worth of very good Mexican food. And on
behalf of Spain, I'd like to correct you that
I know I said Spanish, and then I said Mexican. I knew you would catch it. I waited. I saw the little twitch, the little roll of the eye, the little oh boy, I gotta get involved.
Yeah.
So you had some shit happen on your end. What was it?
Well, I went on
the news 2 weeks ago. What was it?
Gosh, I can't even remember.
Was it an election issue or no? Or
yeah, well, there was a Spanish election, but that's boring. Yeah, so we went to this place that we have historically gone for the past 20 years in the south of Spain.
20?
Yeah.
Is that so?
Yeah. The first year I went was 2002, I think. No, 2002 or 2003. And it's this house that used to belong to my mother-in-law's father, and it now belongs to my in-laws. And we just go there and we do very little, which is...
Yeah. Is it on the shore?
No, it's the whole region is landlocked. There's no water anywhere.
A little town?
It's a tiny town. The town, I think the year-round population has got to be in the 500 or something.
But is there a little cafe?
But in the summer, it swells to like 8,000 or something, because all the people that are from there that had to move away to get jobs because there's no work there, they all do this pilgrimage back in the summer for the summer festival. And and
summer festival, I got it.
And all the bars that have shut down for the rest of the year sort of rehydrate and come back to life. Although fewer than ever before. They
this year.
Yeah, when I remember there being like 10 bars, and but I hear stories of there being like 100, like 40 years ago or whatever.
In this little town.
In this tiny little town.
When they had 8,000, not 500.
Yeah, I guess. And it's just nice to unplug. And this house, they've got chairs, but they don't have like a sofa. So I end up just lying down a lot, like in bed, which I end up like, taking a couple naps every day.
With the TV in there?
No, there's no TV.
So you're just laying down reading, or just laying down staring?
Laying down, staring, and praising the air conditioner, because it gets super hot down there. When I first started going down there 20 years ago, there was no air conditioning, and it was miserable at night and especially for the afternoon siesta, where it's super hot and you just like sweat constantly in bed, and then like have to flip over and let your other side dry off, and the bed.
You have a fans though, right? Warm, but fans.
They were used to not having a fan, but I demanded a fan, and so I always had a fan. But
I couldn't live with that.
Yeah,
I have to have a fan now, and I live in Michigan.
Right. So it's
365 days a year too.
Right. Exactly. So but it was nice to just total disconnect, because I wasn't planning or shopping or preparing any meals. Like, it's just going back to being a kid, where like they call you when it's time to come to sit down at the table to eat, and then you carry some dishes.
Who all was there? Was it your family and more, or just your family?
It was my wife and kids, and my wife's parents.
Oh, at their house.
Yeah.
I see.
It's their second house.
Are they always there when you're there?
Yeah, I've never been there without them.
And how do they have two houses?
Yeah, they live up in the north, but then they could go down in the summer for like 2 months or something.
Yeah.
And
then the house is otherwise empty?
The house is otherwise empty, like the rest of the town.
And is the house in the area at the 500 population mark attractive enough for a weekend trip on its own, or not really? Just for the house?
It might be if it wasn't 6.5 hours away.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. So.
Oh, my word.
It's a long
That's
drive.
a trip.
Yeah.
That's like Portugal.
Well, funny that you say that. We actually took a day trip from there briefly into Portugal.
Because it's that close to the border.
Because it was pretty close to the border. Actually, we took a trip to where my mother-in-law grew up. We took a trip that we often do to where my father-in-law grew up, which is even closer to the Portugal border. And then from there, we dashed into Portugal, and then came.
What did you do in the town where your father-in-law grew up? Did you stop and have a coffee?
Barely. His family that are there, they just sit around the house and talk. They don't go out to
anywhere,
a bar,
right?
or even for a walk.
So you just showed up at their house and sat around and talked?
Yeah, basically.
How long were you there?
I mean, we got there around noon, and we left the next morning.
So
we stayed there. What?
Cerveza?
I did have one beer there when we when we went out for a quick walk in the evening. But yeah, to be honest, it's a little boring. But
Sure.
there.
Sure.
And
well, it's not a club. It's not like going clubbing.
no. And everyone is talking about Aunt Sue. Do you hear Aunt Susie died? Oh well, cousin Rafa and Jose must be blah 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 blah. There's a lot of that.
And all Spanish that is very familiar to you and spoken in a way that you caught it all, or
no, they speak a very sharply accented Spanish there I can understand it, but it takes more effort for me because
plus when you do understand it, it's not of much interest in us.
Indeed.
So why bother?
Exactly. So
why bother?
So then we took a brief hop into Portugal, which was, I don't know, kind of interesting. It was very much like that part of Spain, except they slightly misspelled all the words, because Portuguese looks like misspelled Spanish and sounds like mispronounced Spanish to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like you can understand it, but you can't.
Right.
You can't mispronounce it in that exact way that is Portuguese.
Right.
And then then we came back and we did nothing for more days.
But you were, last time we sat and talked, you were in North Carolina, weren't you?
No, I was back here.
Or you would come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you come back. That's a long drive. That's not a quick little drive.
Yeah, it is. And
you were gone a long weekend, or how long?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Well, my.
And we've done it in a weekend. In previous years, we've left the kids there and come back without the kids, and then we have to dart down for on a Friday night and come back on the Sunday to bring them back. But this time, the kids really wanted to come back with us because they've never been to the summer festival in the town where we live, because it's always during the weeks that we've been there. And so they wanted to come back, and that festival is about to start
this weekend?
This weekend, yeah.
That's a big one then, too, huh?
Yeah, we actually get like nationally known singers and stuff that come and give concerts and stuff. It's nobody you would have heard of, and most of them I haven't heard of, but you can tell.
My question too was whether you get into or listen to or follow any Spanish bands or music.
There's some. I used to do more of it than I do now, but in the past few years, I haven't gotten into any new bands because, I don't know, just work and stuff. But that's about the status. That's my status update.
Well, you said today that it was 100 there.
Yes.
It is 98 here, and with a poor air quality due to additional smoke in the atmosphere, and is so hot that I don't even want to stand out there for a minute. It's just baking.
Yep.
And we put a tent up for the kids to play in, and it's a half moon tent for a beach, and then I put a tarp over the front of it so it became a tent, and put some stuff on the ground in there, etc. And it's like 110 in there. And my granddaughter goes in and says, "Let's play in here, Grandpa." And I said, "Well, how is it?" And I put my head in, and it started to feel like I was a chocolate cake.
Yes. Wow.
And pulled out, and then went in the shade, and it wasn't much better. I said, "It's hot out here, isn't it?" And the 6-year-old, my little G, says, "Sure is." And I said, "You want to go inside?" And she said, "We did." And we played inside instead.
That reminds me, the primary industry and in my father-in-law's hometown, where we only spent the one night, is making charcoal. And charcoal is apparently made by taking wood and burning it, for a little bit, and then
Yes.
and then extinguishing it, so it's like slightly burnt wood.
Which is exactly where we end up every time we build a fire. We end up at the charcoal stage, and when we're looking at it, we know that that's how they make charcoal, because that's exactly what it looks like.
Right, exactly. So what the and apparently, like the trees in this region make particularly good charcoal. So they.
And how many of them are left?
I mean, they must replant them.
They must, right?
But the consequence is that about a mile out of town, there are these charcoal plants that burn these huge mounds of wood, however long you're supposed to burn it to make good charcoal. But the result is that there's this smoke that is just sort of hanging in the air. And at night, I swear, it's way more noticeable at night, but at night, it's so freaking hot that you have to open the window, and then all this like smoky air comes in, and you can't see the smoke, but there's these particles in the air.
If you smell it.
You smell it, but more than that, at least for me, it makes it really hard for me to breathe.
You feel it.
Like I take in a breath, and it feels like I need more oxygen. And that is a terrifying situation to be in.
Yes.
Like that's what they said.
So did
COVID.
you go into all your mantra and Zen shit and get through it?
I
or
mean,
just keep the window closed.
No, we had to have the window up because otherwise it would be too freaking hot. Because here I didn't have a fan,
so it was either too hot or can't breathe.
Yeah,
and you chose can't breathe. You really hate the heat, bro.
So
sounds like you'd rather risk death than be in the heat.
So
the heat could kill you too.
I slept in an N95 mask because thanks to COVID. Remember how we were talking about how thanks COVID. Now we all have these masks, and so I slept in one. It took me forever to get to sleep, and then during the night it sort of fell off. But I realized that on my side I could breathe better than if I was sitting up or anyway
on your back, right?
And anyway, I got through it. It sucked, but like. That's the way they live there. And, like, there's no way they don't have a higher rate of cancer and stuff there. Because it's like, living there is like smoking 3 packs a day.
Particulates.
Just living there, yeah. Particulates. Particularly, it's the particulates. So, anywho.
But you out of there, then went back to his house.
To
father-in-law's house.
No.
From the town where your dad grew up and you couldn't breathe. You went back to his home, current home. Am I following you, or what happened?
You're close, but yeah. Then we stayed there for one night.
Yeah.
And
then he went back to his place.
Then we went back to where my mother-in-law's from. Anyway, I'll draw you a diagram.
Because that was so the father-in-law's hometown was a side trip from your mother-in-law's hometown, which was the main trip from their main house.
Yes.
And it was like an artery and a vein.
Sure.
Yeah.
The whole trip was in vain.
Something.
Yes.
You're so vain. You probably think this blood is about you. Oh, I'll tell you a cool thing that happened.
Tell me a cool thing that happened.
This is fun. So we do the big Friday gig down at the festival place down here, the green space in the middle of town, when the water all around. Beautiful spot. Johnny Bergen does his thing. We do an after party out until, we help them load up all their equipment. I mean, they quit the big stage at 9:30, and by 10:30 we're unloading all the stuff again at this little bar in this back room. And then people ordered pizza, and they were eating pizza and having beers. Then about 11 o'clock they got up, but they had plugged in all their amps, and guys set up a full drum kit for the trio.
Wow.
They played until late, and then we left, helped them load up again. They were on their way to Chicago to play the next day. So JoJo and I slept late and laid around, drank some water, because that evening we had a invitation of this dude I met when I was playing one night down at O'Duffy's, and he came up to me, dude about in his 50s, I would guess, maybe a little older, maybe 60s. And he said, "Hey, you got a good voice. I want you to come to my place. We do rounds of music, a lot of Saturdays. How do I get a hold of you?" And I told him. Then he wrote me, and he said, he said, "We don't have one this week. I'll let you know." Then he wrote me, and he said they're doing kind of a fundraiser for a guitarist who was down on his luck, blah, blah, blah. Could I come and play, whatever, join him? So I took my brother there. Well, as it turns out, as we knew, it was also the day of the enormously popular Kalamazoo Blues Jam, which is a one-day event.
Yeah. 6
bands, including Victor Wainwright, who apparently burnt the house down. But I didn't go, partly because I was burnt out in Johnny, and partly because that long story you heard me talk about with the Stamp Blues Association. But anyway, we went to this place instead. We go to this old brick place that I've seen alongside the road back where I used to live. It was kind of in a woody area, real woody, and old dirt road goes up the side of a hill, and there's a little water plant there. And I always noticed these two brick houses next to each other, and they kind of went down into a valley. So that's where it was.
Yep.
So we get there, and there's this walk down his yard, past his house, the backyard, even further down, then a set of like 6 steps into an absolute gully with this big barn and stone wall, old barn off to the side. And he set up a stage complete with lights and an absolute kick-ass sound system.
Wow.
That he had hooked up to his recorder, and he planned on recording all the music for this fundraiser. So JoJo and I are like, well, geez, we're the first ones here. We're a half hour after it's supposed to start. And it wasn't that we were the first ones there.
The only ones.
We were the first ones there, but there was another category that we covered, which is we were the only ones there.
Uh-huh.
Make a long story long, dude shows up with his guitar, his 2 kids, his wife who's kind of sick, etc. And it's a fundraiser for him.
Oh, God.
And he just kills it on this solo guitar at the mic. I mean, it's like shit. He did War Hogs. You familiar with that tune?
It's not coming to mind. I'm sure I would recognize it. Yeah.
Okay, anyway. Very difficult on the guitar, and you really appreciate it. And apparently I'll get a recording of it. And so there was another dude who came to play, and I met him briefly. And besides him, there was the dude who runs the thing, Rich, and his woman, whose name is Breeze. And she had cooked up some potatoes in the fire, with some just delicious butter and seasoning on it, and it fried up some squash and had some dogs and what. And there was she was planning on people coming, and she said, we've never, all the years we've been having music here, which they've been doing for years, and recording it and packaging it
Ugh.
and sending it out to the musicians.
That's so much work for no one to show up.
And this is what this guy does. Well, so that wasn't his attitude, because he's a guru. He was perfectly fine with it, and as it turns out, between me and my brother, we helped this guy out.
Yeah.
You know, and as much as, if there were 10 other people, there, those 10 people would not have contributed half of what we did, because we just reached deep and said, "Here you go, bro, feed those kids,"
Nice.
And we had a great time. And then so the other dude, who's an accomplished guitar player and has recorded a CD or two, he does the whole set. And so by that time, the dude and his kids and his wife have left, and now it's me and Joe and the host Rich and Breezy. And then sometime in the beginning of this, halfway through this guy's set, she listened to me get up and sing harmony to a tune and play some harp. Then she left. So for about an hour and a half, it was the host Rich and Joe and me on the harp and singing a little bit, and Matthew playing this just great fucking acoustic plugged in guitar,
Nice.
And we had a great time. Then we carried all the sound equipment up the steep hill, which weighed 1 million pounds.
Yes.
It weighed 1 million pounds.
Those speakers are heavy, or just the mixing decks and stuff too.
The mixing deck was so big. Thankfully, Matthews, a younger dude, just hefted it up and shouldered it and
Nice.
Stoked it up the hill. I had the speakers, one in each hand, and I had to go up those 5 steps. I could only do 1 step at a time. I'd take a step, put them down.
Those magnets are heavy.
Take a step. They're just crazy heavy. And these were the size of, 2 by 2 squares.
Yeah, 2 by 2 by 2.
Rectangular though, probably 2.5 by 2, big.
Yeah.
Heavy. So that was a blast, and so now I'm going to be getting invites from him to be able to do that. And he said in the last year, people who have met there have sprung up 3 different bands.
Exactly.
He named me the 3 bands, and one of them, the Incantations, I actually met the drummer, saw a YouTube of them, which I liked, more alternate garage grunge stuff than
your style.
than anything else. But the drummer is the woman I met, and I love to hear her. So that was cool, and the lights, and the fire burning, and just the vibe.
I feel like that's the way the music scene is in a lot of places. Is musicians get together and they jam, and then they go off and they start their own bands. But having that network means that if you need a marimba player or something, you know one or whatever, and that's pretty cool. Yeah. So when we were in this town where we were for the 2 weeks, and they had their annual festival for like 3 nights.
3 nights of a festival?
3 nights of a festival, yeah.
That's a lot.
And it because it's so freaking hot there during the day, everything starts at night. So it started with a fireworks show at like 10 p.m.
Really? Started?
Yes. It started at 10 p.m. And typically we would go home around 3 to 3:30 in the morning. And then, but if you spend all afternoon in bed because it's so freaking hot, then you can stay up at those hours. It's a bizarre world. And
your in-laws participate as
they do
mightily as You guys?
Well, I mean, they go out and take a seat and order a cocktail. Yeah.
But not till 3:30.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. In previous years, there was more dancing and stuff, and my wife was kind of bummed that there was much less dancing this year. Oh, that reminds me. I saw the most amazing thing in the sky. I mentioned this to you in an
Yeah,
email.
you did. What was that all? And when you were there, right?
Yes. So there, because it's so rural, and because it's in the summer, there's all this high pressure in the air, and there's like no clouds almost ever. So at night you can see all the stars. It's the best star viewing experience I generally have. You can like make out the Milky Way and stuff with your naked eye. Very, very lovely. And I remember being down there the first time I saw a man-made satellite going through the sky. Have you ever seen a satellite at night?
Yes.
Like they move fairly quick, but
Fast, right?
But clearly not an airplane. Also, airplanes tend to blink. Satellites don't. And so we were sort of sitting out there looking for satellites, and then we saw like 30 points of light traveling in a straight line across the sky. At the speed that satellites go, there was no sound. They weren't aircraft, and they were all going in this perfectly straight line. And they got really bright, and then they vanished one by one. As they got to a certain point, they disappeared.
They turned deep.
And I had never seen anything like this, and my wife and I were like, "Okay, the alien invasion is happening."
But they went the other way.
or they cloaked or whatever.
To recon. They went the other way to recon.
Right.
Planned for the attack in the morning.
And my best.
Where's Tom Cruise? Where's Tom Cruise when you need him?
Tom Cruise.
War of the Worlds.
Ah, okay. I was thinking Will Smith of Independence Day, but yes. In the moment, my best theory about what we were seeing, because also it was way slower than a shooting star is. Like shooting stars are like, phew, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And my guess was that it was some sort of an object that had broken up and into a bunch of little objects, and were
Why a straight line? That's not that pattern.
No, they would make they weren't all in a perfect straight line. They were grouped, like it was sort of separated, and that would make them all have the same sort of velocity. If like a bigger thing broke up, they would all the pieces would still be going in the same direction.
Did you check if anyone else had reported it?
Well, I took several photographs, and then I took a video, and amazingly, my phone's camera can take a video of that.
And you have it?
And I have the photos
You
and
gotta
the
post
video.
it?
I immediately posted it to Twitter and was like, "I've seen it, UFOs, help!" And within minutes, I got the answer.
Which was what you told me?
What did I tell you? No.
That it was something that broke
no.
up into pieces.
This is a common thing that you. Last year, I don't think this was a thing you could see, but this year it is. It is ironic that I asked on Twitter, because it's a Starlink train. Do you know what Starlink is?
No.
Do you know what SpaceX is? Space.
Elon Musk's company
Yes.
to get to control the universe
Yes, basically.
financially.
But what SpaceX pioneered was the the rocket that can take off, and then the entire booster bit can come back down and land and be reused.
Oh, really?
Previously, like with the shuttle and stuff. I mean, with the shuttle, I think the boosters would fall into the sea, and then we would go and collect them and reuse them. But here, it's like the whole freaking rocket. So he is able to, and now is launching like 100 satellites a month or something.
What?
Like every couple weeks, he's launching like 25, 30 satellites. And these are for this Starlink service that he's created. And what that is for satellite internet, basically. So if you're in a place that is super remote and you can't get internet or don't have a cell coverage or whatever, you can buy. At the moment it's considerably more expensive, but not. It's maybe like 2 or 3 times what a typical like broadband cable service costs.
Right.
But you can be like up in the freaking Yukon or something, and you can buy one of these things, and it has a little satellite dish on it that, like, apparently when you turn it on, it like goes and searches, and then it finds one of these chains that's going through the sky of satellites. And there must be something about it being in a chain that means that if you sort of aim in that general direction, one of them is going to get a stronger signal than the others, and then, I don't know, somehow it works. But this was really instrumental in the war in Ukraine, because Russia cut off their internet access. But then Elon was like, I got you guys, let me ship you some of these receivers, and then you can...
Yeah, I remember seeing that in the news. I didn't quite understand. I knew that he had, obviously, satellites. I didn't know about this linkage system.
Neither did I. Because otherwise it would have been, oh, that must have been one of those.
Right.
But like that's huge in a war for the invadees to be able to tell the truth about what's happening on the ground, because normally, if you shut off communications, then the outside world doesn't know what's going on in the battleground. But if you can let those people communicate, then that is game changing. But anyway, this was super cool, and immediately I got responses saying, I've seen that too, I didn't know what it was, and somebody said yeah. And there's a website that I will link to in the show notes that you can go and you can see where they are and where they're going to be. And the one that I saw within an hour was over Australia. Like that, they go around about 2 hours every.
Wow, that's crazy. So that gives you an idea of the breadth and depth and scope of Musk's holdings. That whole shit, because he's in the news so much for this stupid Twitter now. What is it called? X?
Yes.
Just X, is that what we call it now?
Apparently.
Did you see he put up a big X that was pulsating, and they had to take it down, or at least make it stop pulsating because it was annoying to the neighbors.
He's such a teenage boy. Like he makes all these dick jokes on Twitter, and
does he really? Well, I saw an interview with him on with Bill Maher, which is worth watching, and I was surprised by how engaging he was, and how, I mean, he just seemed pretty damn smart fellow and well spoken.
He is, but his sense of humor is.
He wasn't particularly well. He didn't have time. It was just
right.
4-minute interview.
Oh, okay. Which was therefore would have been super well prepared, but the one analysis I've heard of him is he's the kind of eccentric, let's do this crazy thing kind of person that is capable of driving Tesla and SpaceX to do this crazy innovations, but you can only get so crazy because like physics will push back on you. Like no, we can't have the rockets do a loop-de-loop before they land, or whatever, right?
Remind me of a story I want to repeat. I heard from my brother when you use the word loop-de-loop. But who was the other guy that competed with him in the space? That just did a documentary about him. Was his name Banyan? Brandon?
I just had it. Branson.
I saw the entire documentary. I was never had known anything about this dude except occasionally.
Yeah.
I was fascinated, but he's that.
Yeah, and the other billionaire rocket dude is Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy. But where was I going with this? Have you heard the one goofy dumbass thing that he's doing is he's challenged Mark Zuckerberg to a
cage fight.
To a cage fight.
What is a cage fight?
It's whatever MMA is, where there's just like mixed martial arts. It's just whatever
kicking and punching,
whatever you want to do to subdue this other dude. It's like the ultra violent thing,
right?
And of course, Musk he's pretty fit for his age, but Zuck is very fit for his age and like has trained in jujitsu and shit, and would just totally destroy him. And Musk is tweeting this shit like, Zuck has said he's in, and we've secured the Roman Colosseum. We've talked to the Roman officials, and we're gonna. And
which of course he would do.
Just this over the top nonsense, and it's all nonsense. Like, this is never going to happen because it's so fucking stupid. But I don't know. Everyone is, but it makes everyone chuckle. It's sort of like how he who has been indicted would talk about just random bullshit, and it's so random and entertaining that people talk about it, and therefore he's on your tongue all the time. But yeah, well,
and that's what with all these crazy stories that you hear. That's why this interview in 3 or 4 minutes is so kind of unique and different, and he comes across as so very likable,
right?
Which, knowing his politics more now than I did before I heard them, it's I dislike his likability even more.
Heck, I could probably even be likable for 5 minutes if I was trained.
Well, I don't know. Let's not get crazy here.
2.5, maybe.
Quick second.
Okay. Do you want to do loop-de-loop first, or do you want to talk about
this is a story I heard yesterday. My brother is working in a place where they store oil and mineral, garbage and stuff like that, these huge landfills. And one of the containers that they have is wide across as a road, but it's a cylinder and it's kind of underground. And so it's a sunken cylinder, the width of a road, all concrete walls. And he had a job to go in there with a ladder and fix any cracks or anything. There was a punch-out list. The job's almost done. We're ready to use this thing. And as he was doing the check, he found himself in the middle of the circle.
Yep.
Which was pretty fortunate, because as he looked up above, a fellow in a forklift came too close to the edge of the cylinder he was in and dropped a 5-foot-tall container of gas.
Yikes.
And when it hit the bottom of the tank that my brother was in, the top broke off and it became a rocket. And it's spun in a circle, and because it had such centrifugal force, it bounced off the wall all the way around him, turning and circling, and it never came within 6 or 8 feet of him, but he was watching this until the gas all expelled, and it ended up going underneath the ladder every time and never even knocked the ladder off. Is that nuts?
That is amazing.
Is that nuts?
Wow.
And obviously not poisonous gas, but something used, it could have been helium for all we know, but whatever it was.
Yeah. Wow.
It was all about the pressure. But all these years, I'd never heard that story from him. And that was...
Oh, so that was a long time ago.
50 years ago.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Or, 45 years ago. 40 to 45 years ago, I guess. So it's sure good to see him. And here's a shout out to his dear wife, Lizard.
Lizard?
Drinks on Lizard. Passed away August 18th, 2021.
Right. I remember that was 2 years ago. Yep.
Well,
yeah, you talked about that. So, just a brief foray into current events. You gonna watch the debate?
Yes. 9 o'clock this evening, I will be glued, and my favorite candidate in the Republican field, Chris Christie, will absolutely win this debate hands down. He will catapult in second place in New Hampshire behind Trump. He will win the endorsement of the current young Governor Sununu from New Hampshire, who will choose him over the other candidates, and suddenly DeSantis is dead. Who will kill DeSantis? Chris Christie will kill DeSantis tonight. He will end his campaign. That's my prediction.
And what about the elephant not in the room?
He will take
both as party symbol
hits,
and as obesity.
But everyone will do their best to pivot from questions about him to their policy and vision. While the questions will be pointed, if you're a Chris Christie, excellent debater, you will give a sufficient answer and take your remainder of your time to switch it. And, this isn't blah, 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 Trump. This isn't about Trump. This should be about policies. Let me talk to you about our military. Let me talk to you about the immigration, which is a huge issue for Republicans. That's their top issue. 67% of the people surveyed said that rather than hearing about Trump, they'd rather hear about immigration. 67%. 58% said, let's see, what was it? Another big issue, but whatever. But these polls are telling, and the people will listen. DeSantis is going to come across as a little motherfucking weasel he is, who is so unlikable. Nobody likes him.
No.
People who work for him don't like him. He can't come across as likable because he's in fact unlikable, and he's not a good actor. There was a memo leaked. His campaign got all this money, hired all these people, spent all this money, didn't do a fucking thing, let all the people go, and revamped his campaign before the first debate. He's such a fucking idiot. Couldn't manage even that. And then they leak a memo that tells him what he should do. Yeah. And one of them is pivot about heartwarming stories about your wife and your family, ... Show emotion. So now he can't do that. Now he can't do that. If he does anything that looks like it's in the memo, he's going to get called out.
Nice.
That's how Chris Christie destroyed Mark Rubio in one debate with all 11 of them. He singled out Rubio, and when Rubio was done with this thing about Obama, Chris Christie looked at him and said, "You are so well rehearsed with your opening statement about Obama. What do you have to say about anything about this?" Rubio couldn't answer. Right. He said, "There you got it, folks. That's the video. Mark Rubio." I mean, just destroyed them.
Yeah.
Destroyed. So I'm looking for some fireworks.
I've heard people saying that Christie's going to do very well because he's good at calling a spade when it's something Trump has said.
He's an expert debater. He played Biden in the Trump debates.
Whereas the others, I've heard and kind of like the theory that they're auditioning for VP under Trump. They can't throw him fully under the bus. They need to cow to him a little bit, but like show some reverence, but then blab on about something of their own
right,
as well.
Like Tim Scott.
Yeah, so it's a mess.
It's a mess. If it weren't so completely dangerous, it would be just absolutely ridiculous. Although it does have a lot of ridiculousness.
And the poor donkeys aren't in much better position either. Like, has an incumbent ever been primaried? Ever not been
like Biden?
Yeah.
In some minor ways, yeah.
Not
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And it was Ted Kennedy.
Okay.
Which got pretty serious all the way to the convention. Carter had a miserable first term. I mean, he lost. He lost to Reagan. No. Let's see. Yeah, that's right. Ted Kennedy. Yeah, right.
Really?
Of course, Kennedy had a problem though.
Yeah.
Drowned girl, car. I mean, whoops.
There's murders. They get.
I just read a little story about him that they showed up at one of his late night parties out in, wherever the hell he lives, out of the Cape and wherever, or maybe it was a Martha's Vineyard, and he showed up in a yellow jumpsuit. And whoever wrote the story remarked and said, "That's quite a jumpsuit. Why would you wear something like that?" And he beamed and he said, "Because I can."
Boy, that's a little bit like the "I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue" claim, except
yeah, it was not a flattering article about Kennedy, to say the least. Any article that would describe him in detail in a yellow jumpsuit, you can imagine, would not be kind of skewed toward the positive.
Yellow jumpsuit.
Toward the positive. So where are we at with, I'll tell you this, I don't know if we've talked about this, you have to tell me, George and Tammy. Jojo and I watched it together. He'd never seen it, so we did the whole George and Tammy 7 series. The best music-inspired television I have ever seen in my life, and frankly, I don't ever expect to see anything better again. And I've seen, as you have, lots of stuff on musical. Nothing like this.
I think I got through like 3 episodes.
Oh God, it's good. The music writing and the performances of that music performed so aptly by the actors, so incredible by the actors, is nothing short of astounding. That Jessica Chastain channeled Tammy Wynette. Mm-hmm. Just channeled her. Oh God. And George Jones. Hoo-wee.
The latest movie I've seen is Nope. Do you remember several years ago the movie Get Out?
Yeah.
It was Jordan Peele's directorial
Yeah, I
debut.
didn't think much of it.
It was fine. It's a psychological horror flick. But his second one that came out last year, I guess, called Nope, is also a it's a horror film, but it's about aliens, sort of, and it's all it's mostly well, it's the same actor from Get Out is the primary character.
Oh yeah.
Who is amazing, and it's this. It's I heard it described as a neo-Western sci-fi horror. So it's set with horses in the West, and it's this guy is from his family business is to train horses for Hollywood movies. And anyway, he's out on his ranch, and some weird shit happens, and eventually, he sees the UFO or whatever, and then it's about he and his sister trying to get footage of this thing, because as we all know, all UFO footage is super freaking blurry, and except for mine the other night when I got the UFOs,
which was in fact now is a CIDF, currently identified flying object. Although is orbiting flying is an interesting question, but yes. And anyway, it was okay. I much prefer psych horror than alien horror. Yeah.
Or serial killer jump scare knife stab horror.
So what was the movie we saw? The series was Let Me In, or Can I Come In? The little girl vampire.
Little girl vampire.
The series. 12-year-old female vampire. The father, Italian father, killing to give her the blood she needed, was a series. Can I Come In?
This is a TV show?
Yeah, well, TV series, not a show per se.
Field of Blood?
About it. What?
Field of Blood?
No.
I don't know. I just Googled father killing to give daughter blood TV show.
And it didn't come in. It's a series.
Flesh and blood. Anyway, whatever.
I saw the original movie that it was based on.
Okay.
And I was just amazed. But I raised that only because I thought it was on your radar screen.
I don't recall ever talking to you about that or what it is.
How would I go through an entire series and not talk to you about it?
It seems bizarre. I know.
Look, you can Google prior shows.
There was one called True Blood that was popular for a while.
No. You didn't like True Blood. That was too quiche vampire shit. This is compelling TV with a 12-year-old child and her father killing to drain the blood into a jug so she can fucking drink it.
Wow, that is not firing any neurons in me.
Oh wow!
I can't name a vampire product that I've enjoyed.
Right. This you would, and that's why I'm sure that's why. Well, it doesn't matter whether we spoke or not. That's a side issue. I'm telling you now, both the series and the movie upon which it's based are certain types of homework for you. This is difficult because this is the type of genre you don't generally like or go to.
Yeah, so. That's like, between now and next week, eat some Brussels sprouts or whatever.
Right.
Although I kind of like those.
So I got at the party with Mike, Big Mike, out at the lake. I got the title of a cowboy tune, which if you got the right title, you can just go backwards from the right title.
Okay.
So I'm going to sing a little bit of it for you here before we part.
Are you going to tell me the title, or is it in the song?
No. The chorus? The title is the opening lyrics.
Okay.
Okay. Are you ready?
Hold on. Okay, now I'm ready.
I'm so miserable without you. It feels like you never left. I'm going to never be happy. I know it is.
To my left.
I can't. I got too many burnt neurons. But that's one of the titles, which is "I'm so miserable without you. It's like you never left," which I think
That is
great.
fantastic.
And the other one is "I want to meet you in the cornfield and kiss you between your ears."
That's gorgeous.
Not nearly risque. I got a bolt, man. I got a bolt.
All right, Bolt.
This was a great renewal. It just seemed that the time just flew by.
Indeed.
Flew by. And this new shit you got here, this is the best.
Well, we'll see.
From my viewpoint, right, which is limited.
Okay, that does it for episode number 192. You can find the show notes at happyhour.fm/192, which include my UFO footage, which is pretty exciting, I think you'll find. And you can help support us at patreon.com/happyhour. We would very much appreciate that. And that's it. We're back, baby. See you next week.